just because the rest of the industry is telling us that this is what we need to be doing, if it's not working for us, then it doesn't work for us, and we need to move on and try something else or tweak things. They don't need to be huge changes all the time, but we were willing to go ahead and say, like, at any point with anything that we're doing, even if we had put hours and hours and hours into something, we were willing to say, hey, we need to scrap this and go back to the drawing board because it isn't working.
Welcome to the Brands That Book Show, where we help creative businesses build their brands and find more clients. I'm your host, Davey Jones, and today we're chatting with Becky and Jesse of Idealust. They are business coaches out of San Diego, and they help creative entrepreneurs build businesses and scale those businesses so that they produce more profit, more joy, and more time for adventures. And today, they're sharing how we can actually move the needle in our businesses. Can you guys give us a little background about how you got started? I know that coaching wasn't your first business that you guys ran.
It was not, and it might not be the last either. We don't know. Jesse and I met in South Africa back in 2008, and we were working on media projects together for this nonprofit, and somewhere in there he fell in love with me. I don't know what happened exactly, but...
At first sight, right, Jesse?
We both know that's
Hey,
not the
I
truth.
teed you up on that one. All you had to do was say yes. All right? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Becky.
No, you're fine. So we came home from Africa after working there for a year and working together and falling in love. And we were starting over. We were starting from scratch. We had both quit our jobs to move there for a year. So it was like, now what? And we had been shooting together in the townships and doing some photojournalism and stuff like that. And we're like, let's start a photography business. So
that's totally logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did that go? I mean, in the meantime, I got to imagine, so you quit your jobs and you had to start over anyways, but wasn't there this sense of I need to pay bills too? I need to have money for, rent or mortgage or whatever. So did you just dove in?
We did. I had a little bit of money saved. I teased Jesse that I was a sugar mama for just a little while.
Yeah, I got nothing wrong with that.
But I personally have a really hard time having a job that I'm not really stoked about. So what happened was I told Jesse I'm going to start a photography business, and he's like, hey, what about me? And I was like, okay, all right, we can do this together.
So I had a part-time job that I was working at. I was a pre-med major, which again, I don't know where that connection came from, but so I was working in a hospital as an ER and trauma tech. So I was going from shooting a wedding, shooting a bride walking on the aisle to being covered head to toe in blood in the emergency room, in a matter of 12 hours. So it was a little bit of an interesting kind of transition in that period, but that's how we got started, just looking at, hey, this looks like something that's going to be fun for us. And we just went out and we did it. That's what it came down to, was us just looking at, hey, this looks like it would be an awesome job. We love the idea of it. We love working together. Me and Becky have never not worked together, just because that's how we met. And so it just made sense for us. And so we just went out and we did it. And, here we are now.
I think after moving to Africa, after you do something like that, the idea of starting a business, it didn't seem... I had no idea. It didn't something we shouldn't do, because we had already kind of done something that people were like, why would you do that? So we just kept going with that route.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think there's some wisdom in there about getting started, is that you don't have to have it all figured out right off the bat. You don't have to have it all planned out from start to finish. There's value in just jumping in and getting that experience. But how did you guys find your first clients? Where'd you even start? And that's where we'll end with the photography questions, because I do want to get into some of your coaching stuff, which I think is super fascinating.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, we started shooting a lot of friends. There's a horrible story of me going out to a park with flyers for $25 family sessions.
Because you think okay, moms and families hang out at parks. And so I made these flyers.
And I'm not a designer. I suck at designing. These things looked horrible. And I think it was literally a $25 shoot.
She went out just handing these things to moms at parks. And she was pumped on it. And I was excited to see how it went too, but I wasn't the one going out there and handing flyers out to moms at parks. I think that would be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Right. You may have gotten arrested. But that is, to answer your question, Davey, that is not how we got clients, because that didn't work. So we tried a bunch of things, but the way we started getting actual clients, we started shooting for friends, friends of friends, booked a couple of weddings for a super low price point where we actually lost money, but, had to build portfolio, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's the only way that story would have been better is if Jesse was the one going into the park handing out flyers for $25 family sessions. Do you still have that flyer?
I do. It's somewhere in a bin in the garage. We've looked for it before. I'm going to try to get it in the show notes.
I definitely want to put that in the show notes, but that's amazing. So, to cut to the end of the story, you built a successful photography business. You weren't always, losing money. You weren't always trying to get sessions by going to the park and handing out flyers. So, after you built this successful photography business, what made you think about moving into business coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It is a great question. So it's funny. It almost like our clients that we worked with for our photography business kind of like led us to where we are now, in that we'd had these conversations. We were very much I didn't necessarily like become a photographer because I just love photography so much. I do love it. But it was more the relationship aspect of I'm like an extreme extrovert. I love meeting new people. I love being able to hang out with people and be like, hey, you're paying me to hang out with you all day on like a really sweet day of your life. Man, I'm in. That sounds like the best.
You got paid to have friends, which was really fun.
And I can validate that. I mean, we just got to spend a week with you guys, and the joke is always, who's willing to stay up with me tonight? And Jesse's always the guy that's like, yeah, I will. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people paid me to do that, which was awesome. And so, we'd have these conversations with them, whether it was at the first consultation or, when we're talking about their wedding or whatever that looks like. We'd have these conversations and, ask, oh, so like, what do you do? Or and they would always come back with, not always, but a lot of the times, they'd be like, oh, like I'm a nurse, or I do this. And like, oh, like, how's that going? Like, well, it's okay, and they're like, or like, so like, is there something else you'd rather be doing? And without fail, they'd like get excited. They'd be like, oh man, I would love to open a restaurant. I would love to like go to culinary school, or I would love to do, whatever it was that would get them excited, and they'd light up. And then
Jesse and I mean, we feed off of that. We're like, oh, that's so cool. Like, tell us more, blah, blah, blah. And why aren't you doing that now? And they're like, oh, I could never do that. And it would like,
they like transform from being super excited to being like, oh, like, no, like I couldn't do that. Like totally like Eeyore, like from Winnie the Pooh. They just like, they like wilt, and it's like so sad to see.
And we'd get in the car and be driving home, and like, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, why do they think they can't do that? And anyway, after having conversations like that over and over again, we realized we were really fired up about it. And we had a stance where not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur, of course. Like, Idealust doesn't exist to go convert people into being entrepreneurs. But we learned quickly that we believe that if you have it in you, like, it's not going to go away. Like, if you have this dream or desire or idea. So after having conversations like that, and after having, Lime Life being successful, we took the extra time on our hands and started another business.
So how did you find your first clients? Was it through those conversations basically with, people that you were working with or people that you knew that were like, hey, listen, you guys have built this great photography business. You obviously know, how to start a business and what goes into that. Can you teach me how to do that?
Yeah. So kind of transitioning from the photography side to the coaching side, there's a little bit of like a awkward period in between.
I'll just say it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't pretty. So we thought, okay, like we can just kind of like put out content, start helping people by writing articles and creating videos and walking them through like what we believe we were experts in and when it comes to growing a creative business. And we thought, okay, yeah, if we do this enough, like we'll be able to make money doing it. And we didn't really have any like monetization strategy. When you get into a photography business, how you're going to make money. It's by shooting weddings or portraits or whatever that is, and people pay you to do it. When we went into this, we didn't really know exactly how we were going to monetize this. We didn't know we were going to be coaching one-on-one. We didn't, know if we were going to be like creating, a community that then we have events and we have conferences. And to be honest, I don't think we ever really thought it through to begin with. Me and Becky are big on just like, hey, let's just do it and let's see what happens.
We have that track record of just jumping off the cliff, which we usually end up making work for us. I don't advise it for everybody, but it works well for us because then we just figure it out.
Yeah. And so, as we transitioned in that, like we had no idea what we were doing. And so we reached out to some people. We got some help. We got some coaching ourselves in looking at, okay, how do you build a like consulting or a coaching business in a way that is organic and isn't like, because when you think of a lot of like business coaches, or at least like 3 or 4 years ago, even like you think of like an old guy with like a business suit, and he's like taking that like traditional
blazer,
like
gel backed hair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
we didn't want to be that.
We didn't want to be that, and so. And I don't think that it would have gone very well for us in the creative industry anyways. And so, we just wanted to look at and explore options to how we can do that in a way that is going to be appealing and how we can help as many people as possible in this. And so as we were doing that, we took on some clients that are reduced rate. Here in San Diego, we had a good community of San Diego photographers.
And some of those people, to answer your question, were our friends or people that we had gotten to know that we were sort of coaching anyway, like just we'd meet them for coffee or we'd meet them for lunch, and it turned into like, oh, cool, I'll help you guys. And we would, and we loved having those conversations. So a couple of those people became clients right off the bat.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you, like during your transition, do you find that it was actually maybe a little bit harder to go from one successful business? So when you start your first business, right, you kind of know that it's going to be a grind, or the fact that you just don't know anything at that point, you kind of willing to, you work through it, right? But then when I find, at least, that during transitions from one business to the next, it's a little bit harder because you're coming from something that's established and successful. You're used to maybe like getting consistent inquiries, and then you go into something else and you almost forget what that beginning stage looks like, and the hustle and the grind, and that, sort of almost torture of figuring out things over again. Right? I mean, did you guys find that at all transferring or transitioning into your coaching business?
We found that a lot, Davey. And we, like Jesse was saying, like it wasn't our plan. Like this transition didn't go how we thought it was going to go. Originally, we thought like all of our income is line life photography. We're down here, and over the next 5 years, we're going to slowly swap that out.
And then we had our first big wedding season while we're trying to grow our business. And like I'm the kind of person that like have a little bit of a workaholic in me. So like I will stay up late. I'll wake up early. We'll just like do what we need to do to get it done. Mm-hmm. Becky needs her sleep.
I need my rest. I need my downtime. Like I can work hard for, a chunk of hours. But anyway, we had that first busy wedding season and I was a mess. Let's just call it what it is. Like I was crying all the freaking time. I do that anyway, but it was really bad. And Jesse's like, I'm putting on the website, we're not taking any more weddings. So instead of 5 years transitioning, it was like 90 days. And those 90 days, I don't think we cooked. We were, not as healthy. This is not a sustainable way to grow a business.
Yeah, but we were able, we looked at, okay, in the long run, like what can we do both of these things, or do we need to make this transition faster? And we made when we decided, hey, no, this needs to happen sooner rather than later. We said, well, let's just do it. And so, we were able to completely transition out of weddings. And we still had a couple on the books, but we were able to completely replace our revenue from our business, which definitely took a lot of the pressure off of that feeling of like, oh, like I'm used to these, inquiries coming in, and we were able to kind of make that full transition, within 90 days.
Yes, Davey, that transition was way different, way harder, way more of a mess, honestly, than we thought it might be. We were originally going to, over 5 years' time, swap out our income from Limelight Photography to Idealust, and we ended up doing it in 90 days. Actually, the other day, as I was cleaning out some stuff in our office, I found this piece of paper where we had this chart of like percentages of like 2012, 2013, like what the swap would look like. And then we pretty much tossed that in the garbage. But it was messy and it was hard in that 90 days where we ended up switching. And, the reason we did it was just too hard for me personally. Honestly, I think Jesse could have done it. But having 2 babies and 2 things we were pursuing with like all of our heart, and we have clients who do this, or like we have plenty of entrepreneur friends who pursue multiple things, but at that stage of our life, it just wasn't sustainable for us to pursue both things. And we knew long term where we wanted to go. We knew Idealust was more of our longer term plan. So when we decided, let's just make this happen as quickly as possible because Becky's crying too much, we did, and it worked out. It worked out in our favor.
Yeah, I think I probably am like you guys in that, where if I have too many things to pursue at once, I don't pursue any of them well. And if you knew you were going in the direction of business coaching, and that's really what's getting you excited, I would assume that it would be difficult to get as excited about maintaining or growing your photography business at the time. And I think I see that trend where there is that hustle and that grind in the beginning, and late nights and second jobs, and all of those things are okay, I think, for a while, and then at some point balance comes back. So we'll have to talk a little bit about that. But first, just in those 90 days, what moved the needle the most in your guys' business to get you to where you wanted to be?
Davey, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think I remember in those 90 days, because we sort of try to put that 90 days out of our memory.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I think that, in the industry, there's this conversation that talking about hustle versus oh no, you need to find balance. Balance is so important. You don't need to kill yourself to build a successful business. Now, I'm a little bit more on the stance of hey, no, there is a time and a place for hustle. If you're not willing to put in the work, if you're not willing to put in the extra hours, especially if you have another job or you're trying to go full time in your own business, there is a 100% need for hustle in your business. And that's where we just went out there and we did the work. Now, we weren't just doing work, though, that was oh, yeah, let's just cold call random people. And, no, we were very strategic about what we were doing. And we, had checks and balances in those things. So we'd look at, hey, is this actually working? And we try to have real measuring metrics to look at, hey, if this isn't working, we need to spend our time doing something else. And so I think that if there was one thing that helped us do that as quickly as we did, it was simply just being real with ourselves and looking at just because the rest of the industry is telling us that this is what we need to be doing, if it's not working for us, then it doesn't work for us. And we need to move on and try something else or tweak things. They don't need to be huge changes all the time. But, we were willing to go ahead and say at any point with anything that we're doing, even if we had put hours and hours and hours into something, we were willing to say, hey, we need to scrap this and go back to the drawing board because it isn't working. And if I had credit anything to us being able to do that as fast as we did, I think it would be that. I
think too, just to add to that, Davey, is that we were a new business. People knew us as Limelight Photography, but they didn't know us as Idealust. People outside of San Diego had no idea who we were. And I think the biggest thing also that we did was just built our brand present as quickly as possible. And we did that by leading with value. And still to this day, we still do that, 4 years later, and we still encourage our clients to do the same. And we went out there and said, hey, we're Becky and Jesse, we're Idealust. How can we help you? Here is some value. This is what we're all about. We took that stance of, freedom and of entrepreneurship, and we went out there and showed the world who we were, even though they didn't know who we were, but did that as quickly as possible by leading with value.
And I want to unpack that a little bit because I think there's such wisdom in that, in leading with value. And I think that, the companies get the farthest are the ones that do that. But especially when you're first getting started, how did you measure what worked? Did you have a single metric really that you looked to and decided, okay, this is working and this is not? Was it always in terms of, income? Hey, we're making money on this, so we're going to do this more? Because I sort of feel when you lead with value and when you're building your brand, there is this value to awareness in the beginning, to people just knowing who you are. And in the beginning, that might not be the easiest thing to measure. So how did you guys navigate that and decide, hey, we're spending a ton of time on X, is this working or not?
Yeah, I think that that's a tough question, and it's a tough thing to kind of answer when, for example, a lot of businesses, a lot of what we were doing early on, was a lot of organic things, which can be really difficult to track. Mm-hmm. I'm very much a numbers guy, so I want to know, okay, how many people, what percentage of people saw our Instagram post, clicked on it, and then ended up on our website, or whatever that looks like. And so some of that was kind of using as much as we could to get concrete answers. And that's where we have to start when it comes to really measuring what's working and what's not. We have to try to find, to the best of our ability, what kind of numbers that we can use, because we can't just go on our gut. Mm-hmm. Because, go by necessarily like, oh, we got like this Instagram post got more likes than this one, because there's so many variables that go into that. But at the same time, we can't totally discredit like Instagram followers. We can't totally discredit how many likes you're getting on photos and the engagement you have there. So I think at the beginning, it was one of those things where we were just trying a lot of different things, and we use some of those metrics that aren't necessarily the most healthy metrics to use in the long term. But just looking at, okay, like when we share this, how many website visitors did we get from this? Or
how's the market responding to what we're putting out there?
Yeah.
And without like Sherpa, for example, which we may or may not get into, but without something like that, it was just like, how are people responding? Like, are people replying to our emails? Are they saying this is helpful? And like Jesse's saying, yes, like Instagram followers that we, to this day, will tell everybody, like, unless it's like transitioning or leading into people on your list or clients are making you money, okay, let's not spend hours and hours there. But at the beginning, when people didn't know who we were, we just had to see what people were responding to most.
So for individually per maybe each goal that you guys had, you had some sort of metric in place to figure out whether that was working or not, even if it was something that was relatively intangible, like, hey, we sent out this email, 15 people emailed us back. So obviously this is something that hits people, the right way.
Totally. So, and, we would look at, when we would go do something, whether it was like speaking at a little mini workshop or put on a webinar or whatever it is, we'd look at the engagement we'd have with people. If people would be asking us questions, if people would email us afterwards and be like, hey, like that was so helpful, like, but I had this question. So often we like base things off of like, oh man, I think that was good. But
or it
like,
felt really good. Like, oh, I wrote a blog post. I feel really good about. Great. That means absolutely nothing unless it makes other people feel good too.
Yeah. And some of that has to do with, like we post blogs, and, I think that this is something that's going to be a little bit more applicable to like just the service-based creative industry as a whole, because this is one of those categories where so many of us blog once a month, or, whenever we have a portfolio post that we can kind of put up, and that's all we do. And, we don't really look at like, hey, is this really doing anything? And that's where we want to look at like, okay, well, when we post that on Facebook, are we getting any new traffic from that? And we can't necessarily discount and say like, oh man, this post only got like 30 or 40 views. And you're like, okay, well, is that new people coming to your site? Is that people that are friends of people that were just at that wedding that you shot, or friends of that family that you just shot, or whatever that looks like? And so just because the metrics are smaller and the numbers aren't big, like we still want to take advantage of those things and look at those. And so using those metrics, even though they seem like they may be not inconsistent,
don't matter.
They don't matter. Because they're so small, like using those things can still be so valuable, because you'll be able to look at, hey, this post did a lot better, or I tried posting this in a different way on Instagram and on Facebook, and I did a Instagram story about it, and man, that drove a lot more traffic to it. So you can use those metrics like that, even though they may be small, to tell you what's working and what's not.
Yeah, I think analytics are such an afterthought for people. And, in fairness, it's something that seems, I think, kind of overwhelming. And anybody who's been in Google Analytics, there's a lot of things. If you've never been in there before, you're like, I don't know what, maybe 90% of this stuff means.
I love numbers. I think it's confusing sometimes.
Yeah, right. But there's a couple things going on, I think. One, Google Analytics has started rolling out with updates that I think make the dashboard look a lot more friendly than it did, even 2 years ago.
I agree.
Yeah, so that's nice. And then the other thing is too, I don't think, again, going back to just that concept of getting started, you don't have to know what every metric means to make use of something like Google Analytics. So you can go in there and you can almost guess, okay, user and new user, what do these things mean? And fortunately, again, just with the updates that Google Analytics has made, there's little icons that you can hover over, and they'll give you a little idea of what that number means. But just having those things on your site, especially when you're launching, so that you can go back and look at these numbers and make educated decisions like you guys are talking about. So as you transitioned into your coaching business, you had mentioned that you guys had your own coach. How valuable was that in helping you guys figure out or navigate that transition?
I don't think we'd be where we are now if we hadn't made that move.
Yeah, which is, I think, one of the big reasons why we still do what we do, because we saw the value in that. We had no idea what we were doing before that. And, so we searched out someone who was doing what we wanted to do that was like maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of us. And, maybe a little bit more than that even, and just looked at, okay, is this person going to be able to help us do what we want to do? And that answer was yes. And so, we hired this guy, and ended up being probably one of the best business decisions we ever made, even though it was super uncomfortable, even though like it wasn't something where like, okay, like, yeah, nothing comes from this, like it'll be fine. Like, no, it was a very uncomfortable decision. It was a big investment for us. And that was just something where we realized that, and we had to ask ourselves, is this going to be something that is going to help us do what we want to do faster? Is this going to help us take a shortcut to where we want to go to be able to really make that transition in our businesses as fast as possible? And the answer was a yes for us. And so we realized, hey, that's totally worth that.
So we closed our eyes and handed the money over, and, and here we are.
Yeah, and I want you guys to talk a little bit about what went into that decision. I think that there's probably some misperceptions out there about who needs a coach, right? I think, some people think, oh, well, only if you're just getting started. But you guys had already built a successful business. So on some level, you knew, what goes into building another successful business. And then there's others that think, okay, well, once I make it to kind of the level I want to go to, and I have, all this money laying around, then I'll go and pay a coach. But, to a certain extent, the coach is the one that's going to come alongside you and maybe help you get to that level. So what went into hiring a coach, and who is a coach for?
Yeah, a lot went into. Jesse and I literally laughed. Like when we heard the numbers of the investment, I was like, "Oh my God, babe, you'll never guess what this is this much money." And
no, like no joke.
We were literally laughing.
I was like, what kind of person, like what kind of idiot is going to pay this guy this much money?
Hands up, we're the idiots, but we're not.
I was like, yeah, that was me.
So the decision, to get there though, it was just how we knew when we know we want something, like we're risky. People look at us, oh, that's a lot of money, or that's a risky decision. But like if we knew we wanted to get there and we wanted to get there fast, then we knew we needed help. And we have tons of clients. We have a range of clients ourselves, from either just starting out or they've been in business a long time and they're doing incredible things. They just want to take it to the next level. Like as far as who needs a coach, whoever wants to take their business to that next level and is tired of doing it on their own. Yeah. And even if, we've also have clients who are, they're doing great things. They're not even super stressed out. They just want that, that partnership or collaboration.
They want to make sure that all that time, we have clients that don't have, 80 hours a week to work on their business because they want to have that balance. And it's really important for them to make sure that every minute they spend on their business is a minute that is moving the needle, that is helping them grow their business, because every minute they spend on their business is a minute they're not spending with their family, a minute that they're not spending doing what it is most important to them outside of their business, which is the reason why they have the business in the first place. And so, that's something that for a lot of people, it's and for us, why we hired a coach is because we didn't want to spend, another 6 years building a business. No, we wanted this to happen a lot faster, and we knew that we could because we're willing to do the work, and we were excited about the work we were doing, and we knew we could help people. We knew we had a good product or a good service for people, and so we just needed to know how to get it out there. We knew that if we had that right direction, that we'd be able to do it way faster. And, they say it like another level, another devil. So anytime you're ready to hit a new level, there's always going to be new challenges. There's always going to be things that pop up. Whether or not you're moving, even if you don't make any more money, you're not bringing on more clients, marketing changes so much. How you can communicate with people, whether it's via platforms, whether it's algorithm changes, whether it's
what other industries are doing and how that affects your industry. There's so many variables to all that stuff.
Yeah. And at the time, we didn't want to have to figure that out all by ourselves. And so, it just made sense for us, and it made it so worth that investment, even though it was so painful. And I think that the fact that it was painful made us really say, hey, we got to make this work.
And we still had to do the work. It's not,
Yeah.
We handed the money over, but at the same time, Jesse and I worked our butts off, probably more so in that, period of our life than we ever have. I always relate it back to like hiring a personal trainer or, somebody who's going to help you get somewhere. Like if I'm hiring a personal trainer, like I'm going to go work out because I hired them to help me do that,
And it's more expensive than just like a gym membership that you
Yes.
get maybe for $20 a month or something like that.
And then you never go.
Yeah. And so when you show up to that personal gym, you're going to try to get your money's worth.
Yes.
So I think that's an important point just for the investment that you make for coaches and why coaches are worth it. But I think if you look at any high performer across any industry, there's somebody in their life that's outside of what they're doing that's speaking into their life. And I think that makes a huge difference, having an outside perspective. It might be a business coach, it might be somebody who's not even a business coach, maybe more of just a life coach. But I think there's value in having somebody outside of what you're doing, speaking into what you're doing, because they can ask that question and be like, why are you doing that? And it's not a stupid question, right? Like when I came on, even helping Krista, I was coming from education. So I was able to come into that business and I was able to ask a question, just, why are we doing that way? And all of a sudden Krista would be like, I don't really know, because we've always done it that way or because everybody else does it that way. And so it was a good opportunity to stop and evaluate, okay, is there a better way to do that? And I think a coach is just, somebody who can come along and ask those questions for you and make you think about those things. So in the creative industry now, just with, because you guys work, how many clients do you work with at a time about?
Max usually of around 12-ish.
Yeah. Okay. So throughout the course of a year, right, you're going to see up to, dozens probably of clients. So what's working in the creative industry now? Well, what's not?
Yeah, I think that in this digital world where like people live vicariously through other people's Instagram accounts and all of that, I think that what's working the best or what is having the most impact, even though it is a lot of work, is taking people offline, looking at how you can be as high touch as possible in your business. That's something that even for us that we are hitting really hard this year.
And we probably sound like a broken record because we've been saying the same thing on Instagram, on our blog, in our newsletter, everywhere we go. Like people are probably sick of Becky and Jesse saying the same darn things. But these things aren't, they're not going away. They're only getting more and more important, especially with technology and like beautiful websites. And we appreciate beautiful websites. Trust me, we do. But people hide behind them all too often. Like we want, especially us personally, like we want to know real people. Like that's why when we have a call with somebody, no, we're having a video chat and people are like, oh, I've never done this. It feels sort of weird. We're like, I know, but isn't it better? Like we can see each other's faces. So
yeah, so I think that's something that we're really shifting towards and seeing that is working so well is, adding little high touch points throughout, whether it's, making sure that people can see your face, whether that's doing Instagram stories, and actually showing your face and not just like taking pictures and kind of curating the world through that way, but actually being in front of the camera or doing video calls instead of a phone call.
We had a client just this week tell us she has booked 2 of her highest, price packages, which is a big number for weddings. And she said, I've been doing these, video responses. And she's like, it's golden. That's her quote. It's been golden. Like instead of just emailing somebody back, like taking that high touch approach and like sending them a quick video. Hey, so-and-so, it's so great to get your email, X, Y, and Z, more info in the email. I just want to say hi. And I'm so excited. Like that's so small. That's such a small thing, but it's booking her more weddings.
Yeah, that's incredible. So high touch, and I guess one question I want to just throw out there is a difference because there's with online, with digital marketing, there's all sorts of online courses out there that you can take, and on a certain level, that's awesome, right? Because you don't have to go to the local community college, the local college, and take a class in those things anymore, right? Online you can learn pretty much anything you want to learn. So what's the value in doing something like coaching? Or doing something just, high touch like coaching where there's a more personal one-on-one than doing something like a course?
You have accountability, first of all, and you have somebody walking you through, and it's custom. All of our clients, their journey looks totally different because their strengths are different, their ideas are different,
their businesses
are different. So it's personalized, custom attention versus, and we have courses. Courses aren't bad, but we like the mix of both. And So, but when you have somebody who's just a course junkie and going to every webinar, we have some of these clients come to us and they're like, you guys, like we literally tell our clients, stop, don't buy anything else. Like everything you bought, we agree. It's great. Those people who are putting that course on, we love them too. They're great, but you're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do something with everything that you have at your fingertips right now before you go out there and try to get more.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think there's people out there that they buy a bunch of courses and they don't get through any of them. And I think statistically for anybody, so we run a course as well. I think statistically too, there's a contingent of people who buy the course and they never complete it. And no matter how much encouraging you give them through things like emails, they just don't complete the course. But with coaching, and again, I think comparing it to something like hiring a trainer at the gym, you're not going to show up to the gym and just be like, hey, I'm just going to hang out here. I'm just going to sit on one of the benches. And if you guys could you just give me an hour? You're gonna do what the trainer asks you to do.
Yeah.
So high touch marketing. What are some things specifically that people can do to incorporate high touch in their creative business?
So this is something that we've been preaching for a long time.
And we're not going to stop.
We're not going to stop. And that's just using video. One of the easiest ways to create high touch points and will give people as many opportunities to connect with you as a person is just put your face in front of them in video. Like video is so much easier to show personality a lot of times than just using a photo with like a blog post with all these different words. Because when you get in front of people on a regular basis, and I'm sure that, for people that like listen to your podcast, Davey, or the people that listen to, videos from a specific person for a long time, what happens is you start to like be able to hear them talk when you're reading what they say, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm hearing their voice inflections. I'm hearing, oh, they would get excited when they're saying this, and it allows you to get to the people. You're giving people the opportunity to feel like they get to know you on like almost a personal level, which is so powerful. And so, whether that's Insta stories, whether that's Facebook Lives, whether that is just recording a quick video to put on YouTube and put on your blog, that's one of the easiest ways to create those high touch points with your potential clients or with your audience. And there's so many great side effects with using video. There's a big conversation about how people like are very upset because their reach is being taken away from different algorithm changes and stuff like that. But it's like, we want to beat the algorithm, you can use video because video is going to get so much more reach. Now, it's not going to be like the glory days of Facebook necessarily, where you share a post when you have 1,000 followers.
Those were the days
on Facebook. Yeah. Just 40,000 people. It's not quite going to be that. But if you want to take advantage of these holes in the algorithm where you can get in front of a lot of people, video is going to do that for you.
And so video, you'll hear us say over and over again, but then also just like back to those relationships, whether it's your clients, whether it's people you want to get to know, whether it's people you want to work with or for someday. Like Jesse and I are big believers in not like one big, like send one gift that costs hundreds of dollars. Like that's great. And if you have the budget for it, cool. But it's better sending like 6 different things to your clients, or even a quick email after you're finished working with them. Hey, how are you guys doing? That, honeymoon in Maui looked incredible. I just wanted to reach out, say, hey, I was thinking of you the other day because X, Y, and Z. Like stay on people's minds. And the best way to do that is just to stay in communication with them and not like be as high touch as possible, be in their inbox, be cheering for them, and then, you're done with them. All right, on to the next. No, like stay in their life, stay encouraging them and cheering them on. Like that's a super easy way to be high touch.
Yeah, and I think we confuse high touch with being expensive all the time, because high touch doesn't necessarily scale in the same way that some other things do. But I like what you said about not having to send these super expensive gifts to anything that's even just really elaborate to past clients or current clients that you're working with. Kat Schmoyer, who we had another interview with and that you guys have worked with as well, she was talking about how when she got started, she sent 30 these packets almost, that probably cost $50 total. So 30 packets, $50 total. And when she was just getting started, and she probably booked 10 weddings off of the relationships that those started. So there's a crazy return on investment off of something that's not super expensive.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do want to go back to the video stuff. And I asked this, this is sort of a personal question, because I want to love video. I want to do more video. Hence, some of the reason that we're doing the podcast the way that we're doing, where you can look at it, you can listen and watch it on YouTube, or you can listen to it as a podcast on iTunes, is because I want to do more with video for all the reasons that you're talking about. But I like writing. And part of the reason I like writing is because I can go back and edit, and you should see me edit, it's back, just make sure everything's kind of buttoned up and great. Whereas with video, to do that, it requires, for me, I feel like it requires all this editing and just this additional work. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, do I look stupid? I look stupid. I'm not going to, I'm not going to post that. So what tips do you have for people like me, all right, who would love to get into video, but are just sort of scared of it?
Yeah.
I think that, Davey, I'm a lot like you. I shouldn't say I'm a lot like you in this way, but I say a lot of things that I probably shouldn't, or I think before I don't think before I speak sometimes. And I think some of that is just I got to get over the fact that hey, I'm going to look like an idiot sometimes when I'm doing these things, and I'm going to say things that maybe is a little bit too blunt or whatever that is. And I had to be okay with that. And
I think people want that.
And I think people want that.
I know people want that, actually.
Yeah.
Out of I don't know, you can have this beautiful brand and you can have this persona. I think that's all great. And we want to be known for these things of being very specific and putting out in the world. And we don't want to stray from that in a video and all of a sudden not be a good representation of our brand. But at the same time, we want to be real people. I appreciate it when I see somebody, out there who, they look right now, I don't know, I'm tripping over my words, whatever that is. Everybody does that though.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice to you, Davey, and anybody else out there, like Jesse's saying, just bite the bullet, get over it, and just do it.
Yeah, and sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to make these super polished. You see all these video bloggers, or we see all these YouTubers that are these super polished. They have these cool intros, and their videos are so clean, and the music goes so well with what they're talking about, and they're so eloquent. And I think that we put all this pressure on ourselves to create videos like that, where we have so many tools where we can kind of get our feet wet with Instagram stories or Facebook lives, or we love live stuff like that because you can't edit it, because once you say it, it's out there.
Yeah,
and it gives you practice in just doing, you can't go back and say, oh, I'm going to start over. And so you get practice thinking about, okay, what is it that you want to say? You get a little bit better at prepping for those things and being able to kind of think on the fly a little bit more. And those are the things that people really want to see. They want to see the real Becky and Jesse. They don't really care about the Becky and Jesse that we wish that we, could portray to every single person. No, they want to know that Becky cries.
This keeps coming up.
Yeah, hopefully not too much on Instagram Live.
Yeah,
but yes.
They know that I might say things that I shouldn't sometimes, but
a tangible way to do that, David. Just we even still to this day, we've done tons of videos, tons of Facebook Lives, and we still outline stuff out to this day. And we might go on a tangent, but then we always have something to come back to. So as far as tangible tips, write it out. If you're going to do a Facebook Live, what are the 3 points, and what are you going to end on so it actually feels like there's an ending? Because people sort of freak out, here's what I'm going to say to you. Okay, bye. And it's wait, what?
Yeah.
So just having something to wrap it up, an intro, and going over that stuff, practicing. I mean, no matter how good you get or how long you've been doing it, practicing is still super important, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Smiling.
Yeah.
Smiling brings the energy.
It does.
And so you guys have seen, video, I'm going to keep those things in mind because, like I said, my goal this year, and we even did a roundup post, right, with you guys. And I think one of my things was to focus on was video. And I'm so echoing everything that you guys are saying about video. And so hopefully by the end of the year, I'm going to come back to you guys, and I'm going to have you guys grade me on how well I did.
We're going to email you.
Incorporate. I know.
Hey, Davey, where are these videos at?
Yeah. So I'm really going to try to get better at that, especially Instagram stories. Things like that. I struggled partly because I get a little bit of energy from being able to see the people I talk with, even on something like a webinar where you're able to see the questions that people are asking, right? Whereas Instagram stories, it's you're basically talking to yourself, You
definitely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to get better at that. Are there any other ways that people can incorporate high touch marketing into their business? Whether you're a photographer or a planner or a florist.
Yeah, I think that another great way to be able to use high touch, in your marketing and be high touch point or be high touch in your business, is just in your relationships. So often, we don't. Like we would try to automate everything. We try to, even in something that we preach all the time is, like automate everything in your workflows. If there's anything that you do for every single client, like you need to automate that if you can. And that doesn't always mean making that like this like email template that goes out automatically. It could be things like, automating and, setting workflows in place or systems in place to where it's going to remind you, hey, check in with these wedding vendors or these industry friends and just like go show them that you're a fan on their Instagram. Comment on a couple things of theirs. Like go out there and say like, hey, I'm going to get together at this coffee shop. I'd love to have you guys come over and just hang out. It's again not so much about these big grand gestures or like going to these networking events and like trying to get as many cards and meeting as many people as you can. It's about showing people that you genuinely care, which usually adds up to showing people that you do care on a regular basis by commenting, by seeing if there's anything that you can do for them. Always coming back to leading with value. It's so easy for people to see through you being like, oh, hey, like let's grab coffee so that I can maybe work with you in the future. Instead, like go into that with zero expectations, with looking at instead, how can I help you?
And being a good listener, I think, in conversation in person, but also just to your market, to what you're putting out there, to what your clients are saying, to what your friends and family of clients are saying as they post stuff, like just listening in general instead of going out there and feeling like you need to talk and bring it all the time. Like take a step back and see what's going on and then respond.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that for relationships especially, that's one of the questions that I've asked pretty much every interviewer that during every interview that I've done so far. And it keeps on coming up. There's this idea of relationships, and you really can't replace that, and you really can't not do it, right? You got it.
It's not going to get very far.
Yeah, sure. So what are some things that you're seeing in the industry right now that are just not working, and I want to, I'm sure that you guys have maybe some common things that come to you, as a client says this and you're just like, hey, just every client says I'm doing this and you're like, just stop doing that right now. Don't focus on that at all.
I think the first thing and probably the easiest thing, depending on where you're at, is looking at what's currently in front of you, or the thing that's being ineffective. People are not looking at what's currently in front of them. They're like, I need more. I want more. How do I get more? And I get it. We've all been there. But I guarantee anybody who's saying that has stuff that's directly in front of them, whether it's relationships, emails, something in their business, that there are holes that they can go in and fix and fill those gaps with some of the other stuff we've already been talking about before just trying to get more. So like filling the gaps and just looking at what's right in front of you is something that we start with all of our clients. Like, all right, what's working well? What's not working? Let's like take some inventory here before you go out there and panic and freak out about needing more.
So it's different for a lot of different people. If you say, hey, this strategy doesn't work, there's going to be, for every person that says that, there's going to be 5 people that say, oh, no, that's working in my business. Mm-hmm. And so I think what to kind of elaborate a little bit on what Becky just said, it's just looking at like in your own business and being real with yourself. I think that you have to be able to look at this and say, hey, like this really isn't working, even though you want this to work so bad.
Even though you put money and time. I mean, even I remember when we took down, just as an example, when we took down like our photography site, we still have our blog up. But I remember that day, like Jesse had said, like that was our first baby and we had put thousands of dollars, like the promo video, which we still have out there, but like the site, all of the stuff, I'm like, this was thousands of dollars and now we're going to take it down. But we did that because it was no longer serving a purpose for us. Yeah. So, applying that to smaller areas of your business, like if you're working so hard on something, but it's not working for you, like giving the freedom to like surrender that and move on, I think is super important.
Yeah. But to answer your question about specifically what are some things that we see that like aren't necessarily working as well as maybe they used to, or things that people get excited about doing that don't really do anything for their business, I think one of the biggest things is just blogging for the sake of blogging. That's something that we see all the time, that people just like put up a portfolio post, and then they get in this cycle of like, I'm going to post on Instagram, hey, come look at my pretty work. and they may get some traffic there, and then people get to the blog and they don't give people anywhere to go. And so I think that it's usually an easy fix. It's either changing up the way you blog so that you're, maybe a little bit more story based, or you're, pulling out something that from that wedding or from that portrait session or from, working with that client that is going to be able to draw people in, that people are going to get excited about. Because when we get in that cycle where it's just like, oh, I'm going to blog, I'm going to post, no one cares.
And a lot of people don't know why they're even doing it. Yes, like, oh, I blog this, I need to put it out in the world, maybe it'll give me more clients, but like lack of purpose behind every move that they make just because that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find that a lot, especially since one of the things that we teach on is SEO, is, there's this half-truth out there that blogging is good for SEO, which is, it's true, but only if you're doing it purposefully.
Yes.
If all you're doing is blogging personal stuff because you saw a popular blogger out there and all she does is blog personal stuff, so you think, oh, if I do that, I'm going to get a ton of clients and traffic too. You're probably you're not going to be happy with the results, probably, right? It's probably not going to lead to more clients. You have to have a purpose behind why you're blogging. And I don't think that, again, I feel like people struggle, especially with blogging. And I don't know if you guys have found the same thing. But I think thinking through that purpose, it's not super difficult once you sit down and say, okay, why do I want, what kind of people should be landing on my website? Why am I putting this piece of content out into the world? And I think people will find that they save a ton of time if they think through those things that you guys are talking about, because otherwise they're going to be publishing these posts that get really no traffic and they don't really move the needle and they spend hours on them. And like you had mentioned earlier in the interview, when you're spending hours on that, you're not spending hours on something else.
Right.
So is there anything else that you find, people are coming to you and they're like, hey, I'm really trying to grow, my Facebook page, or I'm really trying. Is there anything else that people are doing that just really isn't moving the needle?
Yeah. This might lead to something specific, but I think a lot of people aren't diversified. They're putting all their eggs in one basket. Like, they've been in business 5 years. It's all referral based, which is so awesome. That means they've built incredible relationships. They have a great client experience, all of these things that are going well for them, but they haven't done anything else outside of that as far as marketing goes. And so now 5 years in, you think like, I'm home free, and all of a sudden people are panicking because
the inquiries stop coming in.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I think the mistake or the ineffective thing is like just solely focusing on that one thing and not being able to like shift and move how the market moves and how technology is going and how our industry is going. And like bringing it back to what Jesse was saying earlier, like, oh, people are panicking or they freak out or they don't want, like, oh, Facebook, the algorithm, I'm not getting the reach. And like, totally, that sucks. We get it. We all hate it. But if this is what's going on and we can pay 10 or 15 bucks to get in front of a couple thousand people, even though you didn't used to have to do that, and you're kind of bitter the fact that you do now have to do that, you have to be flexible as far as like what's going on in the world, and not just like put your, like stomping your feet that you can't get what you used to with Facebook.
Is there any one channel that you guys would, if you only had to choose one or maybe one or two channels to focus on, what would you tell most creative service businesses to focus on?
I think that the key word there, for me at least, is channel. Because it doesn't, for me, I don't care where our clients get traffic from or get visibility from. But the key thing is that you have a channel for people to come through. Even if, for example, like a lot of our clients focus on Instagram because that's where their clients are hanging out. They're not necessarily hanging out on Facebook as much anymore.
Sure.
So if that platform is Instagram, or where that channel starts is Instagram, it's important to know, hey, where does that customer journey take them? So often we post on Instagram and we're like, hey, but like no one's coming to our site. And it's like, well, are you asking them to come to your site? Are you giving them a reason to come to your site? Are you telling them to come to your site? Because here comes a blunt Jesse quote. But like, people are dumb, and you have to tell them exactly what they do. And it's not
he means that in the nicest way, everybody.
It's not that.
Sure. No, I completely agree.
It's not that people like aren't intelligent. It's the fact that we're a little bit lazy, and that we're being bombarded with so much stuff that we need to make sure that we're leading people where we want them to go. And so I think that more important than just looking at like, okay, where the traffic or where the channel starts, I think is much more important to look at, okay, where am I taking them from there? Because once you have that, then it doesn't matter if you're taking them from Instagram to your website to an inquiry page, or if it's from, you know, an in-person networking event to something like that. You have an idea of where you can take people. And I promise if you can do that effectively and you can lead people down a journey where you're intentionally designing, hey, when they come to a blog post, I'm going to give them a call to action that says like, hey, do you like what you see here? Like, I would love to chat with you about shooting your wedding. And you know, we keep coming back to the wedding because that's where we started, I think. But like, that's such a great example of how so often, you know, for example, when people are blogging, it's just a blog and there's no calls to action. You know, that's why they look at this like, hey, people come to my blog, but then they just leave. And it's like, well, are you giving them any reason to go anywhere else? And I think that's such an important conversation to have with yourself and such an important exercise in looking at where it is that you want them to go and then looking at if you're actually leading them there. So, you know, once you have that figured out, I think that looking at it totally depends on you looking at where your audience is hanging out.
And what your strengths are as well, because as much as we preach video, for example, like we know video is great for business, but it might not be everybody's strengths. Like we do think everybody should try it, but at the same time, like they might be so much better at connecting with people in a different way. So it comes back to their strengths as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I love what you said about leading people. You know, I think one thing that we see on websites a lot, and we do a lot of different website reviews for clients, that you know, they have these pages and they have links to 1,000 different things, you know? And so in that case, I mean, that's almost a little bit different than what you're talking about, which is just as important, having a single strong call to action at the end of a blog post that tells people, you know, that you want to work with them, you know? But, and then on the other end of that, like, if you lead people everywhere, they're going to go nowhere, you know? And so you really, I just love what you guys said about having to lead people and having an understanding of, you know, what their customer journey is, I think is also super important.
Yeah.
So if you guys are, you know, so going back to coaching, especially with you guys, like what advice would you give people who are like, you know what, I need that, you know, maybe they're sitting there like, I have 1,000 different ideas. I need someone to help me, you know, find a little bit of clarity. What advice would you give to people in seeking out a coach? Like knowing what you guys know, being the experts, if someone's looking for a coach, how do you think they should go about finding one?
Well, they should go to Idealust Life.
Absolutely. And we've done coaching with you guys and we found it extremely beneficial. So we can attest to, I mean, not only just the value of coaching, but how fun it was to work with you guys. And you guys helped us specifically around a launch that we were doing. And again, just going back to what you were saying about coaching, and I feel like I am fairly technically savvy, you know, like in the sense that I can figure it out, you know. It might not come super naturally as, you know, I feel like you are one of those guys that you, Tyler Harrington, you know, a couple friends of mine that are that, you know, you love the tech world and you're always in it. But I do feel like I can figure out things for the most part, you know. But, you know, when we're doing this launch with you guys, like I knew I could probably figure it out and the launch probably wouldn't go as well. And, you know, I'd probably make 8,000 mistakes along the way, which is great. And I can learn from that for the next time. Or we could hire you guys. We could do it pretty much right the first time around and still learn a ton in the process and probably spend, you know, half the time that we would spend trying to figure it out on our own, you know? But, you know, just finding a coach in general, you know, like, are there certain things that people should be looking for?
I think something that's super important outside of like the business realm, because those are there, I want to get to some of those too, but like it's, do you click with them? Like personality wise, that's why like every strategy call we have with people, like we do a Zoom call or Skype or whatever it is, because we want to see their face and we want them to see who we are, and vice versa, because you're going to be working with this person, and not just so that you get along, but so that you are coachable. Like if you don't respect somebody, or you're like, oh, it's just something's a little off, like you're not going to listen to what they have to say. Yeah. So for us, that's very important.
And I mean, we talk to our clients, you know, our like longer term clients every single week, and we talk to them a lot more than they talk to a lot of their friends or even family. And so it is important that they do like us, and we have like at least a healthy working relationship relationship in that. They have to be able to at least be able to believe some of the things that we believe in, and the philosophies that we have.
Another thing, as far as business wise, like, can they help me? What am I looking for? And have they helped other people get there?
Or have they done it themselves?
Or are there other people out there that, have been in my shoes and now they're here because they hired so-and-so?
And I know that you guys occasionally turn people away, and just say, hey, this isn't going to be a good fit. And I think that there's real value in that. Just realizing as coaches or in any profession, regardless whether you're a photographer or planner or whatever, that not every client is going to be exactly the right fit. And I think that says a lot about the coaches as well. So what do you guys, so let's say somebody really wants to hire a coach, but they're just simply not in a position to do so. Because like you said, it is an investment. And I think in a lot of cases, as you guys, I assume, do too, think that in a lot of cases it's well worth the investment. But if somebody is not in a position to hire a coach, is there anything that they can do in the meantime?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things. One is, and that's why courses are so popular, I think, is because it does give you a chance to, work with us or on a smaller level, but still be able to get some of that information, get some of that direction. Unfortunately, courses work for a certain type of personality, for people that are going to go through it and actually make those changes and do the work on their own without any outside accountability. There's also other things out there, like, we're having a marketing retreat this summer where we're giving a lot of people the opportunity that haven't had the chance to work with us in the past, whether it's because their schedule is full or because they're just not in a place financially to make that happen. Where, we're going to bunker down in an Airbnb with, 8 to probably 10 or 12 people max and look at, hey, what can we do in our businesses that's going to help us grow? What are the things that are working, what's not, and how can we apply those strategies to your business specifically? Again, for people that are like, oh, like I've done the course thing, I need a little bit more hands-on, something like that I think would be super beneficial for people, because so often it's so hard when we get caught up. They have all these people telling us, hey, you should do this in your business. No, actually, you need to do this in your business. Nope, Instagram is dead. Oh, no, Instagram is the best thing ever. And you hear all these conflicting things, and it's so hard to sift through that when you're just like, I just want to know what to focus on. I just want to know what I'm willing to do the work. I just need to know what I need to do. I need some help and direction. And I think that, that's one of the reasons why we're doing that, is because we know that we can help people very quickly. Just simply by helping them lay out a game plan, help them apply those strategies to their business specifically.
And we like in-person stuff, and we like tacos, so all of that stuff is going to happen. But if they can't come to that, something that they can do on their own is just like something we mentioned earlier, like take an honest look at your business, and even if it's things that you don't want to see or numbers you don't want to see, and like what is working and what is not working, and then also what are those gaps, that something that's been like that little devil on your shoulder, like, no, you need to get those systems in place, whatever it is, the things you that's just nagging at you that you haven't done yet, like do those things. And I get that that's not fun or easy all the time, but you have to start by filling in the holes before you can go out there and be like, give me more, because it's just going to snowball in the wrong direction if you don't have that other stuff figured out.
Yeah, I think retreats, conferences, things like that are a great alternative in the meantime, especially, and I want to talk a little bit more about what you guys are doing out in San Diego, right? Because that sounds incredible, because you're still going to get a little bit more attention than you would taking an online course. You're around people, both attendees who are in it with you, and the speakers and the educators who are trying to impart whatever it is that they're trying to impart. So I do think and you meet so many people that way. You make like real in-person relationships, when attending a retreat or conference at generally what is a lower price point than what coaching would be. So I think that's a great way to go. Something that I do for books and online courses, and this actually was a rule that I started with books, because I would order books and then I would not read them, or I'd read a quarter of them and I would be done, and so we'd have all these books laying around that I've never read, and I would just keep on ordering books. One thing that I decided to do, this is what, and Krista was a large part of this rule came into existence, and by large part I mean she pretty much created this rule. Is that if you don't finish the book, you don't get to get another book. So I mean, it forced you, even if it was a book that I didn't enjoy, and sometimes we pick up books and we're just like, this is useless. But, it forced me to finish the book before I went and got a new one. And I think the same thing, we're a fan of online courses too, and we put those out. But if you don't finish the online course, there's no reason you should be buying another online course. Finish it, do the work, and then reward yourself by getting whatever that next thing is that you think, is going to help you and your business.
I like that rule.
Yeah, I mean, it saves. It's crazy. Read the compound effect. It's crazy how much money you end up saving, I think, down the road. But and there's all sorts of things that I would love to talk to you about online courses. How valuable they are, and then some of the pitfalls of them too. So that's going to have to be another podcast episode. Jesse, I would love to have you come back on and talk about the numbers. And just metrics, and Sherpa, which is this great software that you've built or helped build. So I want to bring you back on and talk about all of those things, Facebook ads and stuff. But before we end it here, you guys are doing something in San Diego. Do you guys have dates and details about all of that?
We do have dates. It's August 12th through the 15th. It's going to be here in San Diego. We're going to get 1 or 2 beachy Airbnbs.
Yeah, it's going to be...
It's going to be like the real world. We all stay together in the same house, and like great marketing comes out of it. And we're going to have some beach cruiser bike rides, some yoga, lots of tacos. Lots of... it's all marketing. It's a marketing retreat. It's all marketing. And then also we're going to have some one-on-one time for everybody there. So we get a little one-on-one coaching as well. But
yeah. And the whole goal in this and why we're doing this, because we want not just people to learn these things, we want them to walk away with a game plan moving forward. So people that are going to come to this thing, they're going to walk away with not only with the strategies, but those strategies that are applied to their businesses, so they can walk away knowing exactly what they need to do over the next 6 months to a year to be able to get on the right track and start achieving some of the goals they have in their business.
And we're going to practice things that people have been avoiding. We're going to practice some video. We're going to practice some consultation, some sales stuff. We're going to like literally on the spot do these things. So that might make people feel uncomfortable. If it does, that means this is for you, because you're finally going to tackle these things. But we're excited just to come alongside people. We love our one-on-one clients. We love working with people so personally, and this is going to be very personal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit jealous of the fact that in San Diego you have 70 degrees and sunny all the time. You're going to be out on the beach. Arguably some of the best tacos that you could probably find in the United States.
Hands down, yeah.
Yeah. So this I mean, just for those things, I would sign up just for those things. So I mean, the fact that you guys are going to be, teaching and educating and coming alongside people, I think is just puts that over the top. So those details you can find in the show notes, and so head over to the show notes if you want more details about that and a link to get to more information about that. But guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If people want to learn more about you all, where should they go?
Yeah, our website is idealustlife.com, and Instagram is probably where we hang out the most, especially on Instagram stories these days. So yeah, those are the 2 main places.
All right, awesome. And you can find all of that information in the show notes. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Davey.
Thanks for tuning into the Brands That Book Show. To stay up to date with your latest episodes, make sure you hit the subscribe button.